They claim that your identity determines your actions. Who you are determines what you do. And so, for example, if you are an angry person, that's your identity. Eventually, that will come out in the way you drive, and the way you deal with your kids, and the way you play golf, though most people get angry when they play golf, but that's a whole other thing. That who you are eventually determines the kind of things you do. So, not that long ago, Geico did a series of commercials kind of built around this idea, and I thought we'd start by sharing a few of them with you this morning.
I think we should have taken a left at the river.
Tarzan, no. Where Tarzan go?
Tarzan does not know where Tarzan go.
Hey, excuse me, do you know where the waterfall is? Waterfall?
No. Me, Tarzan. King of jungle.
Why don't you want to just...
If you're a couple, you fight over directions. It's what you do.
Where are you?
Well, the squirrels are back in the attic.
Mom?
Your dad won't call an exterminator.
Can I call you back, Mom?
He says it's personal this time.
If you're a mom, you call it the worst time. It's what you do.
What do we got?
BP 64 reporting.
2 units of
sights.
Multiple foreign objects in the body.
Scissors.
If you're the guy from the operation game, you get operated on. It's what you do.
The beast was as long as the boat. For 7 hours we did battle, until I said, "You will not beat me!"
Greg, what should I do with your fish?
Gary.
Just put it in the cooler.
If you're a fisherman, you tell tales. It's what you do. If you want to save 15% or more on car insurance, you switch to Geico. It's what you do.
It's what you do. If this is who you are, then this is what you do. Our passage this morning, we're going to be in 1 Peter chapter 2, and we're just going to look at verses 9 through 12, a chunk of 4 verses that basically begins with a statement about this is who you are, and finishes then with a statement, because of who you are, this is what you do. Who you are determines what you do. We're going to go ahead and start reading here. This is 1 Peter chapter 2, starting in verse 9. He says, "But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his possession, so that you may proclaim the praises of the one who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Once you were not a people, but now you are God's people. You had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy." Those 2 verses, we'll pick up in verse 11 in a minute. Those 2 verses are loaded with Old Testament meaning. And in fact, in the span of just 2 verses, Peter has quoted from 4 distinct Old Testament passages. Those names, holy nation, royal priesthood, chosen people, God's special possession. Once you were not a people, now you are the people of God. Those phrases were loaded with meaning in the Old Testament. Those are the words that God used to speak about the Israelite people. You are my chosen people. You are my holy nation. And now here Peter is going through the work of Jesus Christ that we read about at the chapter 1 just a minute ago. Through the work of Jesus Christ, now you, the church, are God's chosen people. And I'll be honest, there's probably a 4-week series just in those 2 verses. Those of you who are in small groups, I'd encourage you to look at some of the Old Testament passages behind this. We don't have time to do that this morning. What I want to do instead is just look at 2 kind of key themes here to help us understand what Peter's trying to say about our identity. The first is this: when you become a part of God's family, you become, for lack of a better word, special. Those modifiers that he uses, the holy nation, the royal priesthood, the chosen people. If you've ever been one of those people who's wrestled with insecurity, wondering if you have value or worth, you need to understand that as part of God's people, you are royal. You have been adopted into God's family. You are a prince or princess of the King. that you are holy, you are set apart for God's purpose, that you are chosen. You're not the last kid picked on the kickball team at recess. You are chosen by God. You have this inherent value because you belong to Him. Have you ever been around a little kid who has like the special blanket or teddy bear that goes with them everywhere? Like it's their special one. Some of you moms probably have it in the attic that your kid had 30 years ago. Micah never really attached to anything like that, but my niece and nephew have these things called loveys. I'm going to have Eric throw a picture up there for you. This is a lovey. It's like a half teddy bear, half blanket thing. And my nephew, when he was first born, he got one of these. His name was Hogarth, and Hogarth went everywhere with him, okay? Hogarth went to bed. Hogarth went in the bathroom during potty training. Hogarth went to nap time. Hogarth went in the car. Hogarth went to Nana and Papa's. Hogarth went everywhere, to the point that when my niece came along, my sister and brother-in-law bought multiples because Hogarth never got washed, because we couldn't go 2 hours without Hogarth without having a meltdown. And so my niece's name is Adra, and there are multiple Adras so that one can be in the washer while the other one can be in the crib. This is what Hogarth looks after 4 years of being loved. You can't see real well in the picture, but the stitches are fraying. He's missing both eyeballs. There are stains everywhere. Hogarth has been well loved. What's fascinating about that is Hogarth has absolutely no value. He's a blanket. He's like $15 on Amazon. There's no inherent value. It doesn't do anything. There's nothing special about it. The resale value is nothing. And yet my niece and nephew love Hogarth and Adra. Why? Because they're theirs. And your value, your chosenness, your holiness, your royal nature comes from the fact that you are God's special possession, that He has adopted you. He has given you worth. And so the first thing we see about our identity here is that as the people of God, we have this special value placed on us by God. We are unique and chosen and holy and royal and special because of what God has done for us. The second thing we notice here is that we are in this together. You'll notice it doesn't say, for you are a chosen person, or you are a royal priest, or you are a holy individual. In fact, Peter takes three words, one that means ethnic group, one that means religious group, and one that means political nation. And he uses all three of those words back to back to back. That you are a holy nation, a royal priesthood, and a chosen people. That this identity is, I have made you into a new group. Kind of the interpreting verse here is in verse 10, stolen right out of the book of Hosea in the Old Testament. He says, once you were not a people, but now you are God's people. You had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. And Peter's writing to this church that has all sorts of different people in it. The Roman Empire was this just plethora of different folks. So there were people in Turkey who lived there their whole lives, and they were native to the area. And they had worshiped the local gods, and they had done the local dress, and they ate the local food. And then there were Romans there. Because when the Romans came in and conquered, the way they would keep security in the empire is they would leave retired soldiers to run the city. So there are all these retired Roman soldiers with their Roman training and their Roman gods and their Roman ideas. We know there are Jews there, because the Jews had been scattered by exile. So there are Jews still trying to keep the Old Testament law and wear the right clothes and eat the right food. There are probably Persians and people from Eastern Asia there that have migrated. So there's this like hodgepodge of people in the church. And there are people who are slaves and people who have been set free from being slaves and people who own slaves. And there are wealthy people and there are poor people, and they're all living in this church together. And Peter goes, listen, I know once upon a time you were not a people. You were just peoples. We had some Persians over there and some Jews over there and some Asians over there and some Romans back there. But now through Jesus Christ, you who were not a people are a people. And the closest illustration I can give for you is from the movie Miracle, based on the Miracle on Ice hockey team. And there's this lengthy scene, it takes about 12 minutes in the beginning part of the movie. And when all these college kids first come together to play on the team, they hate each other, and rightfully so. Just a few weeks before they joined the U.S. Olympic hockey team, they were playing against each other in the collegiate tournament These are rivals, okay? And this guy cheap-shotted me last week in the semifinals, and this guy's, he showboated when he scored a goal on me last month in our league. So they don't like each other. They're from different teams and different backgrounds. And so early on in the process, they're fighting each other, they're yelling at each other. And there's a scene where the coach goes around and he says, tell me about yourself. What's your name? My name's Joe Smith. Where are you from? I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. Who do you play for? I play for Boston University. Well, what about you? My name's Bob Jones, and I'm from, Minnesota, and I play for the University of Minnesota. And they go around and they talk about this. And as this kind of progresses and you see their differences coming out, they're bickering with one another, they're fighting with one another. He does what every good coach does. If you ever played a sport, you've had one of these moments where the coach just decides, I am just going to run them until they get it right. And we're just going to, I remember at college, one time there's this big hill behind Malone, and we ran 28 of them in full pads after practice. Guys puking everywhere, guys passing out. He just like, I'm tired of it. I'm going to teach you a lesson, and we're going to run till you die. So this is kind of one of those scenes in the movie. They're on skates, but they're running until they pass out, basically.
Everybody get on that line.
Hey.
Again. Again. Perfect. Come on, Craig, blow the whistle. Again.
Mike Eruzione! We're from Massachusetts!
Who do you play for?
Play for the United States of America!
That's all, gentlemen.
So this becomes this climax in the movie that these players get an identity shift. I don't play for Minnesota anymore. I don't play for Boston University anymore. I play for the United States of America. We who were not a people have become a people united behind this common purpose. And Peter is saying something similar to that. He's going to say in verse 11 that we are strangers and temporary residents in this world. In essence, you no longer fit in this world. So you must come together as a people and allow God to use you. And so the very beginning of this passage, Peter's point is this: your identity is that you are God's chosen people. You are special, you are beloved, you are cherished, you are holy, you are royal, you are blessed by God, and you are that way as a people, united together through what Christ has done. You are a holy nation, a chosen people, a royal priesthood. You who are not a people have become a people through the work of Jesus Christ. That's the identity statement. So then the question is, what do those people do? If that's who we are, then what is it that we do because of our identity? And the answer we're going to pick up here in verse 11. He says, "Dear friends, I urge you as strangers and temporary residents to abstain from fleshly desires that war against you, and conduct yourselves honorably among the Gentiles, so that in a case where they speak against you as those who do what is evil, they will, by observing your good works, glorify God on the day of visitation." I want to zero in for a moment on the beginning of verse 12 there. Conduct yourselves honorably among the Gentiles. I grew up memorizing that passage as live such good lives among the pagans, which is just another translation. So if I revert to that, just know that's because that's what's hardwired in my mind from 20 years ago. But the message is the same. Conduct such holy lives among the non-believers. Be such good, godly people among those who don't share your faith. And I want to hold that sentence up because it stands in tension with itself. It takes these two truths and says these two things that we tend to go one extreme or the other actually need to both be true at the same time. Now, some people are really good at the conduct holy lives part, live such good lives part. In fact, many of you grew up in a generation that was all about holiness and separation and avoiding contact with sinful things. A slightly exaggerated version of a conversation I had with my grandfather once, so I'm not judging here. The Bible tells you that drunkenness is a sin, so I'm not going to drink alcohol. That's step number one. Well, that makes sense. If I drink alcohol, I may end up becoming drunk. I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to avoid alcohol altogether. Some of you have made that choice in your life. But then we have to take it a step further because, if you go to the bar, that's where they serve alcohol. So if I go to the bar and I'm around people who are drinking, I might be tempted to drink. And if I'm tempted to drink, I might drink. And if I drink, I might get drunk. So I'm just not going to go to the bar because if I don't go to the bar, then I can't possibly be drunk. Now, again, some of you have made that choice. No judgment here. But then we take it a step further. You know the kinds of things they do at the bar? They go dancing at the bar. They play pool at the bar. So we're not going to dance and we're not going to play pool because if I dance or I play pool, I might want to go with my friends and go dancing at the bar. And if I go dancing with my friends at the bar, then I may end up being tempted to drink. And if I get tempted to drink, I may end up being drunk and I may sin. In essence, my grandfather's train of thought for much of his life was, if I put a pool table in my basement, my grandson may go to hell. Okay? Now that may seem a little bit absurd, but some of you have followed that train of thought before in your life. Where it's not enough to just avoid sin, which by all means, avoid sin. Live a good life. Live such a holy life. But we've been so obsessed with abstaining from things that we not only have avoided sin, we've avoided places and people who might possibly lead us into sin. We've adopted slogans like, bad company corrupts good character, and one bad apple ruins the whole barrel, and we have avoided the pagans. We live such holy lives over here isolated from the pagans. We live such holy lives over here where we don't have to talk to those bad people. That is in essence, for what it's worth, what the Amish have done. The easiest way to stay holy is just to keep all the sinful people out. Unless we need something from Walmart, then we'll go see sinful, never mind. They got a hitching post for us now. I'm sorry. And the problem with that is, one, you cannot be like Jesus if you do not hang out with sinful people. Let me say that again. You cannot be like Jesus if you do not hang out with sinful people. Much of Jesus' life on this earth was spent with people who we would consider not good people. Much of Jesus' life on this earth was spent with people who were considered sinners by the religious institution of their day. Whether they be tax collectors or prostitutes or adulterers or zealots or fill in the blank, Jesus hung out with people like that. So you cannot be like Jesus if you don't hang out with people like that. And two, you cannot fulfill your God-given purpose if you do not spend time with people who are far from Christ. Our mandate as the church is to make disciples of all nations. How are you going to do that if you only ever talk to people who share your faith? How are you going to be Jesus' witnesses to the other ends of the earth if you don't ever spend time with people who don't know Jesus Christ? And so we need that balancing statement. Yes, live holy lives. Conduct yourself holy among the non-believers, not separate from. Now, on the other extreme, we have people who are really good at the among the unbelievers part. There's a modern trend in churches towards what they call relevance. We want to be relevant to the culture. So we're going to watch all the same movies that they do, listen to all the same music they do, go to all the same places they do. We're even going to talk like them, act like them, dress like them, and even to the point where we're going to modify some of the things we believe and teach so as not to offend anyone. Because we want to fit in. We want to be accepted. We want people to like us. We want to be like them. Did you not read verse 11? You are strangers and temporary residents in this world. You're not like them. There should be something different about you as a follower of Christ, and not just what we consider the big stuff, not just the sexuality stuff, not just the language stuff. Back at the beginning of this chapter, Peter challenges the church. He says, rid yourselves of malice, of deceit, of hypocrisy, of envy, and of slander. That means when someone comes and they meet you as a follower of Christ, they should notice that you don't talk bad about them the way their coworkers do. But that we don't gossip the way their workplace does. That they can come here and be honest and open and vulnerable, and this is a safe place because we have rid ourselves of slander. And it doesn't happen here because we live such good lives among the pagans. It means when they meet you as a follower of Christ that you have rid yourself of malice, and you don't hold grudges the way their family does. You're not out to get even with them the way their in-laws are. That they can be open with you and they can be loved by you because you're not like everyone else. You see, it's not enough to just be among the pagans. The passage says, live such good lives, holy and pleasing to God, free of envy, free of slander, free of malice, free of immorality. Live such good lives among the pagans. And those two go together. And here's the reason why. Conduct yourselves honorably among the Gentiles, so that in a case where they speak against you as those who do what is evil, they will, by observing your good works, glorify God on the day of visitation. In other words, this is the scenario that you are standing in a courtroom and you are on trial. And your coworkers who don't buy into your faith, who think you're crazy for being a Christian, they're on the prosecution table. And they begin to list all of the things they don't like about you. Well, he doesn't do this, and he doesn't do that, and he celebrates Christmas this way, and they've got this whole list, and they accuse you of doing wrong. And sitting back in the audience where you can go, audience is the wrong word, but you sit in those chairs where you can observe the court proceedings, are all of the people in your community watching the court proceedings unfold, watching to see how things happen. And Peter's statement is this: live such a good, godly life for those who are watching, that even though the prosecution lists all the things they don't like about you, those watching, they will see your humility, and they will see your mercy, they will see your compassion, they will see your kind words, and they will say, I actually kind of want what they have. I actually kind of want to be like them. And that they may come to know your Christ too, so that when he comes back, they're on the right side of history. The point of your holy life among the pagans is that it is your greatest evangelistic tool. But in order to evangelize, you have to be among them. And you have to be holy enough that they see a difference. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. David Kinnaman has a book called Unchristian, in which he writes this. He says, in order for the church to be salt and light, we must do two things. We must practice purity in the midst of a fallen world, as we live in close proximity to the fallen world. If we don't hold both truths in tension, we invariably either become separated from the world God loves and useless for his purpose, or we become an echo of a God-neglecting culture and useless for his purpose. Either we become separated from the world God loves and useless for his purpose, or we become an echo of a God-neglecting culture and useless for his purpose. Our identity is as the chosen people of God, and our call, what we do because of who we are, is we model holy living in a fallen world to point people back to God. That our neighbors and our coworkers and our family members might someday come to sing the same praises that you sing and share the same faith you share, and that God would be glorified by the way we have lived. And we're going to close this morning with a song called Take My Life. It's an old hymn. I'm not sure we've sung it since I've been here, but I like the imagery of it. I like the phrasing of the song. That we can use our life for a lot of different purposes. We can use our life for financial gain. We can use our life for physical pleasure. We can use our life for whatever. You know, the words The words of the song say, God, take my life and let it be an ending praise for you. Let my life be an act of worship to you. Let me live in such a way that you are glorified. That's what Peter's saying here. You have, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, 50 years left on this planet. Some of you, 1 or 2. I don't know. I'm not pointing fingers. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do as you follow Jesus? You're going to follow Jesus in a way that makes you happy? You're going to follow Jesus in a way that's comfortable for you? You're going to follow Jesus in a way that makes you popular among your friends? Are you going to follow Jesus in a way that points people back to him? Take my life and let it be consecrated to thee. Ceaseless praise of my life. That I would live in such a way that people would come to know Jesus. Such holy lives among the pagans, that they will see my good deeds and glorify my Father in heaven. Now that's a call worth following. As we sing, some of you need to make this decision for the first time. You've never offered your life to Christ, and you need to do that. You need to know what it is to commit, to follow him, to repent, to be baptized, to say my life is about Jesus publicly in front of everyone. And some of you need to use this as a prayer time. God, as I leave this week, take my life and let it be praising to you. Either way, why don't you join me as we stand and sing together?